In a small town in the American South during the 1960s, there lived a scruffy dog named Barnaby who roamed the streets with a heart full of hope but a belly that often rumbled with hunger. Barnaby had never known the warmth of a real home. He spent his days searching for scraps among the trash bins behind diners and fast food joints, dodging the occasional kick from an unwelcome foot. The other dogs in town often regarded him with disdain, their shiny coats and chubby frames mocking him for his thinness and unkempt fur. "Look at Barnaby, the street mutt," ridiculed a bulldog named Brutus, his jowls dripping with an unearned arrogance. "Even the rats won't go near him. Better be careful, or he might just chew your shoes off out of desperation." "Yeah," chimed in a poodle named Curly, her hair fluffed like a cupcake. "You can practically see his bones. Maybe he should just chase his tail and give up already." Barnaby lowered his head, his ears drooping as he turned away, the laughter of the elite dogs echoing painfully in his ears. It was hard to offer a smile when all he had known was the bitterness of deprivation. But he had no choice but to endure their mockery. Acceptance of his fate was the only way to avoid further humiliation. As Barnaby wandered through the quiet streets, the flickering glow of lights from cozy homes illuminated the large windows where families gathered for dinner. His heart ached each time he caught sight of happy children playing, curling up on plush dog beds with their own beloved pets. He could only dream of such warmth and love. But all Barnaby had was resolve. He made a silent vow to himself. No matter how tough life became, he would refrain from acting badly, focus on helping others, and keep his heart pure, qualities that would one day lead him to the goodness he sought. One stormy evening, while seeking refuge beneath a rusted old car, Barnaby heard a small whimper near the storm drain. Cautiously, he approached and found a tiny, shivering puppy trapped in the gutter, its whimpering overpowered by the sound of the rain. The little one was so small that Barnaby could see it was drenched and cold, with its fur plastered against its frail body. "Hold on, little one," Barnaby barked gently, aware of the urgency. With every ounce of strength and determination, he dug into the wet earth and pushed against the steel grid covering the drain. As the rain pelted down, Barnaby felt the pounding of his heart drown out the jeers of the elite dogs he had once listened to. No longer did their taunts matter. He wasn't a nobody anymore. Being a street dog didn't mean he couldn't be a hero. With one last shove, the grid shifted just enough for him to slip through. He squeezed his head inside the drain, his thin body trembling with adrenaline as he grabbed the scruff of the little puppy's neck and pulled with all his might. With one great effort, he dragged the begging puppy to safety. "Thank you. Thank you," squealed the puppy, too young to know the fear of his dire situation. "I thought I'd never get out." As Barnaby licked the puppy dry, he couldn't help but feel a glow of happiness spread through him. Here was someone who needed him, someone who saw him not as a scruffy street dog, but as a savior. The bond formed in that moment made his heart swell. However, as they huddled beneath the car, Barnaby felt something shift in the atmosphere. The clouds shifted ominously, and the rain turned to hail. The little puppy began to shake harder, and Barnaby could see it was not just from the cold. "Stay close to me," Barnaby whispered. He knew he was a stray, but he would find a way to take care of this innocent creature. He breathed deeply, remembering his vows. He would help others, no matter how deprived he might be himself. They stayed together under the car until the storm subsided. When dawn broke and sunlight pierced through the clouds, Barnaby led the puppy to the nearest park. The grassy patch was littered with dog owners having morning walks, unaware of the unexpected visitors. "Look at that mutt. Still doesn't have a home," sneered a golden retriever, but Barnaby's new friend nudged him, feeling it was right to stand up. "You don't know nothing. He saved me," the puppy exclaimed, tail wagging so hard that it looked as though it might lift him off the ground. Barnaby felt a flicker of confidence as the other dogs looked on in shock. For a moment, the teases of the elite faded into the background. The golden retriever's laughter faltered as Barnaby walked with dignity, showing his valor through the simple act of love. Days turned into weeks, and Barnaby found himself muttering a new vow. He would protect this little creature, whom he named Pip. Every day they explored the park together, and they were no longer invisible to the world. They were happy. However, one fateful evening, as he and Pip approached a busy street, everything changed in an instant. Barnaby noticed Pip had scuttled off to chase after a fluttering butterfly, oblivious to the approaching headlights of a speeding car. The sound of screeching tires filled the air, and as horror unfolded, Barnaby felt the world slow down like a broken record. He lunged toward Pip, body aching to protect the puppy he had come to love so fiercely. With every ounce of strength, Barnaby pushed Pip aside and took the brunt of the impact. Pain exploded in his side, but he refused to let go. He knew there was no room for selfishness in his heart. As the car sped away, Barnaby collapsed, his breaths shallow and labored. He could feel the warmth of blood seeping from his body onto the pavement. Pip stumbled back in shock, wide eyes gazing upon his protector who had taken the worst of it. "Barnaby, please. You have to get up." Barnaby turned his head slowly, mustering a weak smile, even as darkness began to encroach on his vision. "You're safe, Pip. That's all that matters." The sound of distant voices and footsteps brought a crowd to his side. The local veterinary team, called to the scene, rushed in to administer help. Barnaby clung on to the hope that his sacrifices were not in vain. The last thing Barnaby remembered was Pip resting beside him, the sun trying to break through the clouds, promising the warmth of a new day. As his eyes drifted shut, Barnaby took comfort in knowing that he had lived up to his vows. He had acted nobly and had saved a life. In the days following, an outpouring of support followed the tragic event. News sharks and sympathetic townsfolk shared stories about the scruffy dog who became a hero, urging families to adopt strays and to show kindness to those in need, including tall tales of how they had been changed through acts of compassion. And in the heart of the park, Barnaby had not merely saved a life. He had saved the memory of hope for the many stray dogs that would roam those streets after him. Years later, Pip would often return to that spot, now a little bigger, a little wiser. With each passing day, he would tell the tale of a scruffy dog named Barnaby, the dog who had no house but was the bravest spirit to ever walk the streets, offering lessons of love, friendship, and the light of moral clarity in a world heartbreaking in its own right.